Every day it feels like Mass Effect Andromeda is cheating on me with Dragon Age Inquisition and Dragon Age fans, because it feels like it needs to like borrow from that franchise, and it doesn't. It really doesn't, because that franchise is completely different, and Inquisition sucked. And I'm sorry that I have to reiterate this on every Mass Effect video I make, but they don't need to take anything from that game. It was awful. There was large zones with no soul to any of them. Boring side quests. Pointless, absolutely pointless wilderness exploration. And the lack of cutscenes. There was almost none. And I'm so worried every time I type in Mass Effect Andromeda on some search on like Google or something, it's always like some guy coming out of BioWare saying, oh, it feels like Dragon Age, and it scares me that this franchise is going to go the route of Dragon Age. Even when I said that this needs to feel close to Mass Effect, not so close, they can, evolve and change some things, but the main thing that they need to keep is how it feels. And it's the same thing with like the protagonist. I know they're throwing a gamble out with having the new protagonist, Ryder, and they don't want to say that they're committed to more than one game with this character because they don't know how well he'll be received. But they can't go into it like that. They went into the Mass Effect trilogy thinking it was going to be a trilogy before they even made Mass Effect 1. It was going to be a trilogy. They need that mindset for this new franchise of Mass Effect in this new galaxy. They haven't said it explicitly, but they've said that it might not be a trilogy. There's multiple possible futures they could take this series. And I think that it doesn't matter how well received the character is. It needs to be a trilogy of characters. Like I've said it again in the other video, what made those characters special is the fact that you spent 3 games with them. You wouldn't have Tali and Garrus as well as you know them without them being in Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 1, they were not as explored as Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 is when people truly fell in love with these characters because they returned and they evolved and they grew with you. And you just don't have that when you keep meeting new characters for the first time over and over again. It just doesn't work. Dragon Age, like I said, the most important people that were in the Inquisition were in Dragon Age 1 and 2. You had Varric from 2, and from 1 you had Leliana and Morrigan. And those were the characters that people loved seeing the most because we knew them, we familiarized with them, we already had empathy with all these characters. Great seeing them again. And Dragon Age just doesn't get that, I'm hoping that after Inquisition you still have your character, the Inquisitor, because the way that Trespasser ends, it feels like it's gonna be his story, continued, even if the characters from Inquisition weren't that good. There wasn't really a single likable one, to be honest, but still, it'll give them a chance to make them more likable because you're coming back with them. They can grow even more with you, and we need that. And the problem with Inquisition was, once again, I'm gonna go back to those 4 points I made. They had those large zones, and in those zones there was like nothing about them that stood out. I mean, yes, Mass Effect had like the Citadel with like a corridor here and there. Omega was, the nightclub. But there was so much more, like Ilium and all these places you can go to. But I feel like with just them adding the Mako back into it, they're gonna go for that huge, open, barren nothing. And it's gonna be like a huge planet of like No Man's Sky worth of nothing. And it's gonna detract from the campaign like mission progression aspect of the game, and it's gonna pull away from that, and it doesn't need to do that. And then the side quest, it's gonna be, I'm hoping it's not like Mass Effect 1 side quest where it's like find so many Asari matriarch things all over these random planets, and then the problem is if you don't find them, all of them, I think we needed like 12. In Mass Effect 3 you can't complete that mission with Conrad Werner where he's writing like his dark thesis paper or whatever. and it doesn't, you can't complete it without that. So I mean, it's nice that it carries over, but it was like such a worthless side quest in the first game that you didn't even know the importance of it in the third game. The wilderness exploration. I mean, we've all seen. Again, I probably mentioned this before, but we've all seen the memes of, the Jumanji meme, like, what year is it yet? Because by the time you get out of the hinterlands, it's awful. Oh my god, it's awful. It's such a horrible way. And this is like before the title screen, right? Because don't you do like the whole hinterlands before, like, even all that title screen comes up? Like, it's like that huge prologue. I don't know, I only played it like once, and I never went back. But it needs to have more to it than find all these shards, pick these herbs, you can make a better garden in your in Skyhold and stuff. And it's just, it didn't work at all. And what bothered me the most was the no cutscenes. It was doing that thing where it favors, the free camera, where it pulls back a little bit and it just sits and watches the two characters talk. There's no cutscene. That never happened in Mass Effect. There was a few people you can like walk up to and like you would talk to them and they'd say like a sentence or two and then you would just like walk away. But like pretty much everybody you would talk to, even store clerks, everybody had like a cutscene animation of you talking to this person. And this is 3 games worth. So it felt like Dragon Age Inquisition was such a step back, and I really don't want Mass Effect to take that same route. It doesn't need to pull back. It needs to go forward, but by staying familiar with the trilogy. It's a very tight line to walk. They need to stay faithful, but if they don't innovate, you're gonna have like just a rehash of the trilogy. And to me, that would be fine. But a lot of people would, see how pointless it is. It's like, why are you making another, trilogy of games or whatever, if it's going to be exactly the same? But my point is, if you want to innovate too far, just make a new IP. If you're going to make it completely unrecognizable to previous games, then don't make it. Make a new IP and put all those brand new ideas you want to shoot out into that IP. And I know BioWare is making a new IP, but this is Mass Effect. There's a certain way it needs to be done for it to be called Mass Effect. They need to make it work, and every time I'm looking up something, I'm always worried that it's in development hell. There's been like that one 4K video that made everybody anxious because it looked like Dragon Age Inquisition, and then there was about 3 seconds of gameplay in the new N7 Day trailer. And this game was announced in 2012, and they've only shown about 4 minutes of Dragon Age type of gameplay and about 3 seconds of actual gunplay in about 4 years. Now, and the game is supposedly coming out in March. That's not that far away, and they've shown nothing. There's no way this game is coming out in March. This game is going to get delayed hard, real hard. It's probably going to come out on N7 Day of 2017. It's going to come out in November. I feel so bad that it's just not going to live up to not only my expectations, but like fans' expectations. And this could be like the death of the franchise. A lot of people say it was the end of 3. But come on, Mass Effect 3 was still a really great game. Even if people hated the ending, it was still a really well-made and a well-crafted experience of a game. Just because some idiot decided to write some shit ending, and the problem was they had too many writers. They had too many writers, and they weren't all on the same page, and they all threw in like a little bit of whatever, and it didn't work. So I'm really hoping that they fix everything that they've shown so far. They need to completely go back to the drawing board on making this game play like Inquisition, and it needs to play like Mass Effect.